So in 2007, I did my internship at Athletes Performance in Tempe, Arizona. And my dream was to be an NFL strength and conditioning coach. And so I saw my internships as opportunities to learn the things that I needed to learn about how to become the best possible strength and conditioning coach. Essentially, I was worried about getting a job. I was worried about getting paid. And I also thought, all right, if I have my dreams, this could be a way to get to that dream. I didn't look at myself as a business. I didn't really think about money outside of being paid in terms of getting my job. And I definitely didn't think of myself as a brand or as someone that had a voice that would contribute back to the industry. At the same time that I was doing my internship in Phoenix, there was another intern doing his internship for Athletes Performance in Las Vegas. And Joel Sanders is somebody that became a colleague and a friend of mine, but was also somebody that keenly understood, one, that he was a business, two, that he had a voice, and that voice is something that he was going to feed back into the industry and give back, and three, that he could do it while also becoming the best strength and conditioning coach on the planet. He didn't have to sacrifice one for the other. There wasn't this loss of nobility because he understood that there was money that could be made and there was a business that could be built off of his expertise as long as he gave back to the people that he needed to. Joel Sanders is not only one of the best coaches I've ever seen, both for his insight and his understanding and his expertise, but for his ability to give back to the community. He's the owner of Wolf Strength, which has created one of the more innovative Wolf's Wedge products, a squat wedge that you can see all over the internet. He understood his power, he understood his voice, and he understood that he didn't have to sacrifice his voice while gaining that expertise. In this casual conversation, I talked to a person that I consider to be a genius when it comes to strength and conditioning and around the business of strength and conditioning. It's Joel Sanders.
So
now I'm ready.
Yeah. Now and I'm gonna start there. Because you and I talked about this. Two points of like a passion for me is strength coaches owning their own brand, building their own businesses, not being essentially like caught on the path of I have to take this next job, I have to, train another hour to earn another dollar. How do we become our own brands? And one thing that I'd always admired in you, whether I saw it developing or whether it was already there but you were not able to express it, was I felt like you were always aware how you handled yourself in the gym, how you coached, of like being your own brand. Not just an employee or a coach of Exos. Whereas I can say, when I was there, that's the way I thought. Like, I'm an Exos coach, and if they put me on camera, cool. If not, I don't want to be on camera. Like, I coach for them. I'm an employee. Were you always like trying to strike that balance, or is that something that's developed in time?
I think for me, it was inherent in that my parents owned a business, a concrete and trucking business growing up. I worked from age 12 until I went to college in that business. And so that entrepreneurial kind of business owner mindset was just always ingrained in me. And so one of the first things I did when I got to Exos and started coaching groups is I was like, hey, I love this job, but I'm like, I want skin in the game. And so at the time, my first month in Exos, I said, hey, can I get commission based off the groups that I work with? And they said, yeah. And so I got commission. So I immediately, from my first day, from my first month at Exos, I felt like a business owner because I had the adult gym pop program and I had skin in the game. If I did well, people signed up, program grew. And it benefited me, not just Exos. So that was key. And then years into it, I ended up selling, like being a salesman and the coach and the program director. And so I think I was probably, as far as I know, I'm one of the only people who ever was a salesman at Exos Like I wrote the contracts, I took people through their tours, I got them signed up for their 1 year memberships. So I would end up getting commission on the sales front end commission, and I got commission on the total program revenue. So I ended up, to me, I always said to my wife, Kristen, I'm like, I I'm running my own business within Exos.
Now, without like commenting on them so much, negotiating was negotiating and having those conversations difficult? Was it just that other people weren't having them, so they didn't realize maybe there were more opportunities like this, or how much of it was like a savvy that you just had where you knew I can create this versus, man, if you don't shoot your shot, you don't know. And I just knew as a business owner, I'm gonna shoot my shot.
Exactly. You got to shoot your shot. I think those who have value, you got more leverage. And
Yep.
so I think I had a unique position of what I was doing, what I was building. The results spoke for themselves in our membership numbers, our revenue. And so when I asked for something, I would have the numbers behind it. I would have the 1 year, the first time I brought a marketing plan to our business directors of like, hey, I want X amount social media spend. I want to run these programs throughout the year. I want to rent out a restaurant at the end of the year to do a membership appreciation. Like we're going to do the whole thing. And the first time I presented that to our business director, he looked at me and he goes, you know what? He goes, I'm going to say yes to all this. And he goes, you know why? You're the first person that's ever presented a 1 year plan, marketing and business development within a program to me.
Dude, who, if anybody, educated you on that? Or was that all just like like you said? I know you said it was inherent, but there had to be some resources that you looked at where you're like, yeah, this, and this.
For sure. I'm a big proponent of masterminds. Huge, huge. So like you got to invest. And so I got in a fitness business mastermind. I mean, the one I went in was Alan Cosgrove's
Hmm.
fitness business mastermind. I mean, there's plenty. So that's not like the one, but that's the
Sure.
one that I got into. And that like really helped. That helped. That was like a cheat code for me in getting my mind thinking more about the business of fitness and not just getting caught up in the X's and O's of movement training on the training floor. So I was able to I felt like I have a unique skill of like anatomy and physiology, my background with coaching of feeling like I'm pretty close to expert level coach, like put in my 10,000 hours. But
Yep.
man, you combine that with some business savvy and know-how of being able to build a business, and like that's like jet fuel in my opinion.
Dude, so I mean, when I think about like the components that enable fitness professionals to be able to transition, or not even transition, maybe assimilate being business owners or being business people while also being fitness experts. The things that immediately come to mind for me are negotiating one-on-one. You have to sit down with that person and be able to communicate what it is you want and know like what levers to pull and push. Marketing, branding, and then a little bit of business one-on-one, i.e. finance. Like you said, you were able to see what the numbers were, maybe put together projections so that you're able to kind of leverage your conversation a bit more. Those are like the four big rocks that I would say, man, if these are the fundamental tools to assist them to allow you to not just be a coach, but now start actually making yourself a business. These are the four things that I would think should be taught. Or does that sound about right, or is there something that I'm missing that you would think?
Yeah. I think the other is just a in-depth knowledge of your consumer.
Yes.
So the customer service piece, like I was crystal clear on. So when I'm training and building our groups at Exos, I'm like, I know who we're serving. We are serving the 45-year-old executive that has spent the last 2 decades building his wealth at the expense of his health. And so 45-year-old executive has a 7-figure or more net worth, entrepreneur executive. And then we also work with, housewives, etc. But I knew the exact age, the person, their pain points. And so when you know that person, you can build a product, your marketing, your messaging, the way that the times that I pick, the type of workout styles, the challenge, everything is built and speaks directly to them. And it hits, everything is designed with them in mind, and it's like just a perfect fit. So I think that what you mentioned are all spot on, but also like getting really crystal clear on your end consumer, which is what I did with Exos and what I did with Wolf Strength as well. Is like, I know what products I'm building and who I'm building them for.
So on the Wolf Strength side, because and I might be wrong here, you just referenced on the Exos and like a very, very specific consumer, which is right. I left out like knowing your consumer is probably number one, right? Like you got to know who you're selling to. Is Wolf Strength designed for a different consumer then? And if so, who is that person?
Definitely. Yeah, Wolf, the person who's buying high-end coaching, in-person coaching, they're not looking to go buy unique strength training products with no fluff.
Right.
They're looking for you. So what do? I'm selling to the strength coach, to the performance specialist who has their own gym, who trains the athlete, and the hard charging executive who wants to get the extra 1% out of their training.
You're selling to you.
That's right. That's right.
Somewhat. I mean, but yeah, you know what I mean?
No doubt. And so, so I'm selling to the coach, and I'm selling to you, like it a little bit more slanted towards dudes who like to strength train.
Right.
Love to spend time in the gym.
And like, did you do any, when I say market research, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like the first consumer that you identified was because that's who you were serving. So you had the opportunity to communicate directly with them. It's not like you went online and you were trying to figure out like who your consumer is going to be, market research. Do you do any of that, especially with Wolf Strength? Does it require a bit more of like, I can't just sell to me? That was kind of a joke, but not. But like, I have to do a little bit of research on the person that I might not be talking to every day.
Well, so yes, of course, you got to do research. The research is different when you're developing a physical product. And so the research that I had to do is search engine optimization. Is what are people searching for?
Yep.
Okay, that's number one. Like I could come up with something great, but if the market's not ready for it, then it doesn't matter. There's all kind of companies that had a great product that were maybe too early, for instance. So number one is, what are people searching for? And then I want to find something that is in moderate demand. What I mean, moderate demand, if I find something that is just ubiquitous, kettlebells, mini bands, and there's so many people selling them, China's always going to beat you on price, etc. So I got to find a little bit more of a niche product that has some moderate demand, but maybe a gap in people that are offering that product. And then the key is for product development is there one way? Is there one particular little thing that I can do to make that product better?
Yeah.
And so that's where my unique knowledge of someone who coaches, and I'm in the gym 4 times a week lifting, I know there's no guesswork. I know exactly what I want out of my specific products. And is this annoying? What type of material? What type of knurling? Is it comfortable? Is it easy to use? Is it light? Whatever it is so market research from search engine. And then I'm not just going to replicate a product. I got to say, how can I make it better? So my first product, which is Wolf Wedge, I love squat wedges. I love Olympic lifting shoes, right? Buttery smooth, like I love buttery squats, get down low, keep me upright torso, stack that spine, long and strong, like great. But for some reason, everyone was making the two little separate ones. And
Yeah.
they're like little ski poles that you have to back up on. So when you got a couple plates on your back, that's not advantageous. The only other option was, okay, oh, you want the full wedge, the big bodied wedge? Go to Prime Fitness, buy a steel one. It's going to cost you 130 bucks,
Yeah.
right? When you're wanting to outfit your gym with 5, 8, 10 of them, or you're a high school strength coach, you run a boutique fitness studio, you're like, dang, I'm about to put in 2,500 bucks for 10 squat wedges or 12. So I'm like, can I change the material? Make it lighter. So let's come up with a polyblend material, super durable, but it's light. It weighs a pound. It doesn't dent when you drop a weight plate or kettlebell on it. It's easy to use. You can throw it in the back of your car, go do sessions outside or at a field. And so, yeah, that was how I made it better. Like change the material, make it lighter, make it more cost effective, make it half or a third of the cost of some of the expensive big body metal ones. And so I created the product, but the other research that I did, Dennis, was on my end consumer is so if I'm targeting strength coaches, dudes who like to train, what kind of branding, like who do I want my brand to be? I'm like, well, I want to come up with an aggressive animal.
Yeah.
Wolf. Why the wolf? Because the wolf that kind of sort of wants it ain't going to catch its prey.
Yep.
Right. And then I'm like, okay, fonts, like the splatter font is based off the movie 300. Like they use that splatter
Yeah.
font. I'm like, great. One of my favorite movies, like aggressive, badass font, like wolf is a predator. Like you got to attack your goals. You got to do your thing. So that was a little bit of like, okay, how do I put my persona and the person I'm targeting? How do I infuse it into the product? So I say those two things, like if you were to overlay them, the research on the product, what does the market want? How can I make it better? And then infusing, dude, like if you go search wolf wedge on Amazon right now or search squat wedge, you are going to see like 5 or 6 different squat wedges that now have the same exact font splattered across the back that say like burn your bridge or one more rep. And so like they're all, I kind of created a brand and brand standards that's now being copied or replicated, which I take as a compliment.
The highest form of flattery, right? That's definitely,
That's right.
That's it, man. So Wolf Strength, that's your brainchild, right? And that's you, meaning like the brand. You're not putting that into a search engine. You're infusing who you are and what you know into creating this brand. So it's you. Because I was going to ask you, where does the wolf come from? Because what's funny is the wolf is my favorite apex predator, personally.
See?
I love it. I know, and that's why I kind of laugh, because it's like, yeah, it's good to know that I'm not unique. I guess that also hurts, but I'm not as special as I like to think I am.
Despite what your mom may have told you.
Exactly. Despite what I feel like my wife and my mom tell me, my son keeps me in check. Them two gas me up, but strength though, I don't know if I don't want to say that a wolf is associated with strength. Like you said, I think like independence, they're apex predators, and like their intelligence and their ability to lead others, but still like be a lone wolf. Like those are the images I have. So I actually like the play of wolf strength because it's not necessarily a quality that I would think, but it is absolutely there, just not in the way that it's commonly considered, because their strength is in all of these other elements. So like, I think it's brilliant, man. Like, I love it. You mentioned your 10,000 hours and being essentially what you would consider, and I would consider, quite honestly, at like an expert level when it comes to our craft, strength and conditioning. And what I love about talking to you, not only because of your insights and our relationship, you and I literally started at exactly the same time. I think you did your internship in Vegas while I was doing my internship in Phoenix, and then when you got hired on, you moved to Phoenix, and I got hired on probably the same week. Like we ended our internships and started as employees. So like our trajectories are exactly in line, at least with our experience, with Exos. And I think our learning curves, at least in the S&C world, are probably very similar as well. If we think back 15, 16 years ago when we were just starting, we just finished our internship, again, like a lot of this is about kind of like program design. What are some of the fundamentals that we can talk about to empower young coaches to be set on, give them a better path? Fundamentally, what do you think for somebody that was us 16 years ago, and you talk to interns all the time where you're like, listen, man, here are the things you got to know about writing programs?
Yeah.
And I know that's a huge question.
Yeah,
So
that's
chip
right.
in.
Yeah. So, I mean, we talked about this. This is that question, that fundamental question is the number one question that you get from interns and young coaches, in my opinion, which is, hey, how do I design and write training programs? Or can you help me learn how to write training programs? So it's a big question. And why it's not easy to answer is because program design is part art, part science.
Yep.
And so there is art, like for you, you're a master program designer. You're looking through a lens of just countless hours and reps and athletes experiences that you've been through that you just can't replicate. You can't. But there is the part, the science you can teach. And so for me, the best way to do it and the best way to think about it is a step-by-step process. And I go through the same 6 steps every time I go to write a program. And so I teach those steps to interns and young coaches of like, all right, here, you want to write a damn good program? Okay, here's how you do it. Here's step 1.
Right. Without giving the secret sauce, what is just step 1? We don't need the 6 steps, but what is step 1? All right, here is because that's the one that's going to probably set you up for success the most, right? Like as you go down the rabbit hole, not that you get off course, but like what should they think of first? What is step 1?
We're going to assume you've gathered your info, right?
Right.
Who's the person? It's that. Yeah. So
yeah.
So that's a given.
Mm-hmm.
Step 1: how many days a week you training?
That's it. Right. How much time do you have?
I gotta know how many days per week. We have to settle on that before I can design you a training program.
If they're coming once a week, they only got one time to come. And I know this is probably the easiest one or the hardest one. Are you doing everything, or are you now going to my assessment and I'm doing what you need the most of, or I'm going to do what you do best to set you up for success?
Yeah.
Or is it a little bit of both?
Yeah. So here's the way I think of it. The fewer amount of times you train per week,
mm-hmm.
the more you do all of it.
There you go.
And so if you're only going to take your vitamins and minerals once a week, I'm going to give you everything all in one, but like open up.
Yeah.
And the more you train, so let's go the opposite end of the spectrum. You're training 5 days a week, twice a day. The more particular and the more specific I get with the split, the dose, etc. So you go from do all the things, all the movement patterns, all in one dose for someone who's only training a couple times a week to someone who's training 4, 5+ days a week. You get more specific with your splits.
Sweet. Not putting too much pressure on being perfect in your program design. Is that something versus developing your rapport with your client? And if they show up, no matter what you do, will be better? Do you subscribe to that thinking, or are you looking to like, no, I want to master what's written on this page?
What's the saying? Is like a poorly written program
Coach
coached
well.
really well, yeah, it's going to yield better results. So yeah, I'm going to
Yep.
lean. So I lean on a couple things for coaches who are just getting started. Simplicity is the first. Is young coaches try to do all the things. They don't.
Yeah.
They don't know how to like reject what's useless or just do a few things really well. So it learning to like focus and just coach the hell out of a few things
Yeah.
that maybe right now, like don't try to, you don't know how to coach Olympic lifts, like don't start throwing them in. You're going to need to just learn them on your own. And that's where sometimes with coaches and young coaches, I'm like, what are you doing in your own training? That's
Yeah.
are you tinkering? That's where I want you to tinker, try things out, go to weekend seminars, go pick people's brains, like to learn stuff, but don't try to coach it on the fly when you don't feel comfortable with it
Mm.
in your own training, or kind of learning some things outside of the training session.
It's funny. I was having a conversation with a coach. We were talking about his program. He coaches youth, and he, after a bit of the conversation, he came back to me later on, and he was like, "Man, I thought about what we were talking about, and we're doing this, and this with these kids, and we only get them twice a week." And he was like, "Part of me feels like if all I did was like squat and have these kids do pull-ups, but I did it twice a week and I did it really well, that we would probably get further with them than me trying to do 15 things on 2 separate days that they only do a little bit of, and like we're not really sure if we're getting gains or not." And I was like, "Yeah, that's probably if that's what you got from our prior conversation, then I'll tap myself on the back a little bit." But like, yeah, like the trick to programming is not in the complexity, but in the simplicity at the end of the day. Like how consistent and like channeled can we make this?
Yeah. And that's something that you were great at, like you personally, is that I always, your programs, like, how you like the mark of a good program to me is when you look at the sheet and it doesn't look like much.
Yeah. Yeah.
When you're like, that's it, just like two supersets,
Yeah.
like you just see like 5 or 6 movements on the page.
Yeah.
Like that's when oh, I'm about to get my ass whooped. It's really what it amounts
Is what
to.
that means. Yeah.
So it like but Dennis, here's what it also allows you to do is when you simplify your program and you don't, like, especially like I'm thinking 1 is maybe younger coaches, 2 is with, let's take like high school athletes.
Mm-hmm.
Is I see the need when coaches put complementary exercises and mobility, core, there's like 3, 4, 5 movements in a circuit.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll look down the gym, I'll look down the training floor, and you've got your big primary movement going on in the rack. You got kids doing front squats or RDLs, and then they're doing dumbbell rows, and then in the back they're doing some type of quad hip flexor stretch or something. Is the coaches, when they program too many movements or too much complexity, it takes their eyes off of what's most important, and they don't know how to identify where their eyes need to be. And the way I think about it is like, let's say I'm having a birthday party, right? I got 5 kids, so plenty of birthday parties happening at the Sanders house. Okay, here's all the things that could be happening. I could have 20 kids out in my backyard. We've got a sandbox, a swing set, and a swimming pool. Okay, so if I've got kids doing those 3 activities, playing in the sandbox, playing on the swing set, and playing in the swimming pool, where do you think my attention as a parent is going to be?
I'm hoping the pool.
Exactly, right? Yeah. Like sandbox, who cares if you're throwing sand in each other's eyes? But I'm going to be in the swimming pool because why? It's got the most inherent danger and risk.
Yep.
So as strength coaches, you have to be able to identify your swimming pool.
Mm-hmm.
And that swimming pool
Love
is
it.
where is my most load and complexity. And that's where you need to just coach the hell out of that and have really high standards, like black and white standards, like depth, back, spine position, load management, intent, speed of the ball. Look at all those things you could coach with an RDL, front squat, bench press, you name it. And just coach that. I don't care if the kids are just sitting on the bench watching, but pair your big primary strength movement with something that's easy that you don't have to coach. A push up, a band pull apart, cable row, something, whatever. You go over here and you do that. But back to like simplicity and coaching a program well, I think program design can also help you keep your eyes in the swimming pool so you can be the lifeguard where it matters the most.
Dude, one, I love the analogy, like killer analogy, because that's just it, right? Keep your eyes, because immediately keep my eye on the swimming pool. Simplify and amplify is what I called it. It's what I've been calling it for years. That's the way I think about like my program philosophy. I want it simple, but then turn the fucking volume up. You want to see results. It's not going to be in a ton of little speakers. Like I love the Social Network part of the movie where he says, "You ever seen anybody with 20 trout on their mantle? No, you see the one with the one marlin, and that's the one." That's the trophy right there. And like, I feel like there's truth in that to some degree. Like, what are the Marlins? And let's be like incredible at that. Because if you can do that well, then catching trout's going to be a breeze. But it's not necessarily the other way around. So how do we simplify and amplify this? And just, and then turn the volume up. And like you said, coach the hell out of that. Because if that's coached well, everything else is going to be gravy. The business mindset. We talked about this earlier already. I don't know if this is part of it, but I feel like it's part of it. One of the things that I told the last mentorship group that I did is I said, "Hey man, look, there are 30 of you here and I just delivered a course. By me delivering this course, your network has just grown 10 times. The people that I know, you don't know, and I might know the person that can help get you to the next step. There's one thing at the end of this mentorship that I will impress upon y'all is to use your network. Like, use it. You're someone that definitely has a network. Like, the little bit that I see you on social media, like you're connected to people that move and shake in the industry. That relationship building and being able to connect with other people in the industry. Was it as simple as you reaching out? Like, how would you go about building your network, and how would you advise people, on how best? Is it as simple as DMing them, or are you going to the mastermind? Like, what is your secret sauce?
There's no, I don't think there's a golden goose, but I'll just give you one. I'm gonna give one specific tip though, that I don't think people do enough. So is if you like something on social media, if you're gonna like it or you're gonna save it, like it was something valuable, you saw a new exercise or something that like stood out to you, comment on it, send that coach a message, or repost it and like give them a shout out. Like, love this, love this training concept that coach Dennis Logan just put out. I know that's not your handle, but that is you don't, even the big timers that you think are big time, like a lot of them see that. And so I think too many coaches, it's crazy. Like, I'll post something and you look at the stats and you'll see that it has hundreds of saves. Coaches thought enough of it to say, I'm going to save this, but yet it'll only have a few comments. And so I would say with social media in particular is you can make connections with people, but you have to start commenting or resharing. Give some value to them as well. Like, reshare their content.
Yeah, engage.
Yeah. Yeah. So I know that's probably not what you were intending, but that's just a little one that I see that's missed by some people.
No, dude, and it is exactly what I was intending, because that's exactly it. I think the point that you just gave, that I was trying to get to, is it takes you reaching out. It takes you communicating. Like, it's actually not that hard to build your network. Send a message, man. Like, like, interact. And it is easier now more than ever to do it. I remember 20 plus years ago, I was doing my master's in Alabama, and I was volunteering, interning for a coach. And there was this routine that he would do at the end of all of his workouts that was called the Javorek complex. And it's essentially a barbell complex that was, quote unquote, invented by Isvan Javorek. And I remember I bought his new book because he had put a new book out, and in it, Complex Conditioning, there it is.
Yeah.
I had bought it because he had just put that book out, and there it is.
Drago. There's that Drago on the front cover.
Right? Love it. And it was that book, and I bought it, and I sent him an email, just straight up cold, sent him an email, and he answered me. And like, exchanged a bunch of emails. I've got questions about like programming and like from that dude. And he answered me because he was like, yo, you read my book, you found it important enough, and you sent me an email. Before you know it, we weren't like best friends, but he was somebody that every now and then I could, if I had a question, especially at that time, and he would answer. And like, that's all it takes. Like, I guess what I was asking you, and you're right, the golden goose is, it's not that hard. Just ask.
Yeah. I don't, in college, I would print out my favorite authors. I would print out all their articles from T Nation. So I'd print out Mike Boyle's articles, Christian Thibodeau's articles, Alan Cosgrove. And it's funny now because I'm on a first name basis with all those guys. Oh. Like Mike and I like text all the time. And Christian, same thing. And just like the guys that I followed, looked up to, they were my mentor and they didn't know it because I read all their stuff. I'm following them all the time, but I didn't just follow. I reached out to them. I would really, if something really stood out to me, I'm commenting on them, like you said, emailing them to reach out. Is like, just be a human being. Like, don't just sit back and consume. Don't just consume.
Right. It is the cliche question of all questions, and I'm going to keep it to 3 and not more than that. Top 3 books, because you got your bookshelf behind you and you just pulled off Javorek's book just like that without even hesitating. It was right there at your fingertips. That's crazy. That's dope, and that was not planned, by the way, which makes it even better. Top 3. Hey, these are the top 3 that I think y'all need to take a look at.
Around in S&C programming?
Yeah. Or no. We've talked about a number of things. Right now, if you're saying, Joel, I want to know what 3 books you're recommending me to read right now. It could be, it could not be, because I've got things that I would recommend to people that are not S&C related.
Okay. Let's do this. So let's go 1 S&C.
Yep.
1 communication life skill, and then 1 financial.
Beautiful. Perfect.
So S&C is Christian Thibodeau's Black Book of Training Secrets. I think you can probably just get it like ebook at this point. It's 20 years old. But going back to programming, Dennis, to me, that was one of the books that really clarified a lot of the things I was confused about, and it gave a lot of structure, and he simplified programming. So when I wrote my article, How to Design a Damn Good Program, it was tailored, or I used some of the concepts that Christian brought in the Black Book of Training Secrets. So I would say that one. And then for communication, and we mentioned like selling, target, like how do you identify, how do you speak to your people? Made to Stick by Chip and Dan Heath. So how to overcome the curse of knowledge and speak to your target market. So I really love that book. And then finances are for me, like the borrower is slave to the lender. Too many S&C coaches, trainers, etc. One is like, they do this for a few years and they burn out, and then it's not a sustainable career. They go end up being a loan officer at Wells Fargo, or you trade your time for money.
Yep.
And time is finite. And so it's really a two-step process for me with finances. Two books. Part one, Dave Ramsey's Total Money Makeover. So how to get out of debt, how to get on the way to building the finances and life of your dreams. And then part two, once you're out of debt, you're putting money away, you've got your 401k, like you're doing those basics, then move on to Poor Dad, Rich Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. And Poor Dad, Rich Dad is just like, how do you start using OPM, other people's money, to make money? And how do you start making money while you're sleeping and while you're on vacation and etc. So anyways, that's kind of all over the board, but those are three that made some impacts in different parts of my life.